Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video, and in this video we're going to be covering how you can take height in competitive Fortnite with this one simple trick using launch pads. And I really want you guys to stick around for the whole video because this trick is probably not what you think it is, but I really think it's useful, and a lot of people in competitive Fortnite, especially tier 1 pros, are going to start using this more frequently, and you're going to see this used more frequently in competitive games because of this strat. Because I think height obviously is one of the win conditions in trios, and it's the only win condition in solo if you really want to do well. The first thing that we have is basically like a tarp going along here. In a moving circle, you're going to be tarping mid ground, and you're going to have, you know, just a bunch of people around you, and there's going to be a height team above. So let's say this is height. If we crank up a little bit and create the height layer, right? Let's say this is height right here. Problem with padding for height right here, whatever way you decide to do it, right? Whether you want to go from the back, whether you want to go from the front, whichever way you really want to do it, it doesn't necessarily matter. But what matters the most is this. So one thing you have to understand and realize is that if I'm tarping on this layer right here, right, and then I'm like, oh my god, height is free, like for whatever reason, let's say they're staggering or they just don't seem that aware, and I want to go for height, right? I want to pad up. The problem is during this session right here, I'm gliding for an extremely long amount of time, and I'm gonna get beamed out of the air or noticed by height. So the key thing is, right, the key thing that you have to make sure you're doing is you need to be lower, right? You need to be lower to the ground, because actually launch pads give you 9.5 blocks of height when you use them, right? So just to show you, so let's count this, right? Right here we have 9 walls, and just to make sure that you guys understand it, so we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, right? And you'll see that when I hit this launch pad, I actually have the perfect amount of height to land on that wall. Or in a more practical case, if there's height tarping, I'm going to be able to land on height without any of that buffer glide where I'm giving away my position and I'm giving away my intention to go land on them. This is what I call it, the perfect launch pad strat. And if you land perfectly on height, you're going to be surprising them, especially if you do it with a trio and you land all 3 people at the exact same time. And we'll talk about ways you can improve this further, but let's first demonstrate the trick. Right? And obviously it wouldn't be a wall, it would be a floor or some sort of, you know, surface in that area, and this is gonna allow you or your team, right, and understand this is applicable in solos or trios, to land on height. So now let's talk about it. Obviously you can't move height up, you know, to that level. You can't force them to go up. So what you can do is you go down, right? You need to go down to a level where you have 9 blocks under height. So what this means is naturally you're probably not going to be second height. You're probably going to be third height or fourth height or some mid-ground layer. You just have to ping height, right? And that's the way you need to do it. You need to ping height, and then you see how high up it actually is. So obviously in this case height is not tall enough, so you actually can't do it that well in this scenario. Notice even if I pad on the ground, I end up too high, so that's really difficult, right? So let's just pretend that this height layer is some mid-ground layer, and actually height is a couple layers up. Let's say height is up here. So we moved height a couple layers up and aligned it with the wall, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, right? So this is the tunnel that we were in before. You can do it from the back end, right? Tanking storm. You can do it from the front, depending on the items that you have. Maybe you have a ton of floppers, right? So you can actually just pad from back here, and you'll land perfectly on height, pump them, and take height. 9 layers up is essentially the number. You don't want to count mid-game. You don't have the time to do that. What you want to make sure you're doing is you're pinging height, right? If you ping height and you see above 40 meters, that's the perfect launch pad. Now obviously you need to understand that the closer you ping on height, even though it's the same height elevation above you, it's going to be a lower number. So that's going to be a little inaccurate based on how diagonal you're pinging, but just understand that it should work regardless, right? And we're going to test this one more time just to show you guys, because this strat is really strong, guys. So I really encourage you guys to try this strat out, because I really think it's really strong. But really make sure you use the ping, because honestly there's no practical way to count layers in the middle of a moving zone where it's really chaotic and super fast paced. So the best way to do it, in my personal opinion, is to go on the layer like this, where you can like sort of judge it, and then just ping it, ping height. All you have to do is ping height. If you ping height, you'll have a really good sense as to what you need to be going for, right? So if I ping height right here, see that it's 38, 35 to 40 meters. That's a good number. So notice if I pad from the ground layer, right, it's 41 meters. That's what you don't want, because from 41 meters, I don't think it's really easy to make it at all, right? You won't be able to make it. See this? So that's really awkward. You can make it on like a layer below, but usually the people don't have those like random stairs that I landed on. So you need to just make sure that it's under 40 meters and above 35 meters. And somewhere around that number will give you the perfect launch pad. like this. And this was height before, obviously this was all me cranking. So and I just want to encourage you guys that if you're going to be doing this in trios, you really need to be understanding of the fact that like you can't just pull this out of nowhere. You need to have some sort of rehearsal with your team or understanding with your team, so that not only, you know, do they understand the play, but they're able to call for it as well if they have, you know, that sort of sense like, oh my god, height's actually for 35 meters up, like we can do this, let's go for it right now, right? Because it's the middle of second moving, we still have solid mats, let's go for height, right? Because you have to understand in trios, of course, low ground is one of the win conditions, but height is also a win condition. You want to be one of the layers that are on the ends, right? Either the very top or the very bottom, because of the fact that you can't get pinched vertically, and it's very easy to get top 2 that way. So definitely make sure you teach your team the exact trick, because don't try to, you know, if you're the IGL, it's really important that your team has the knowledge to, you know, call these sorts of plays themselves, because it's significantly better to have 3 sets of eyes than just having 1, right? Make sure they understand how to call for it as well, because if you're an IGL and a tarper, it's actually going to be really hard for you to manage both different things. So just make sure your whole team's on the same page, and give them permission to call that as well, because I honestly think that most people, I honestly don't think it's like a very conditional thing. If you see this sort of thing, you should totally go for it, because of the fact that it's how surprising it is. One more thing actually before we talk about the in-game example, is the fact that you basically can time your launch pad really well, right? So essentially, if say this is your tarp right here, right? If you're in a tarp like this and you understand, okay, I pinged height, let's say this is height 37 meters, pretty good number. Obviously all this is just nonsense, me building up there. So but this is essentially, pretend that's height right there, right? I want to pad with 2 people. So essentially I wall around my sides, keep the top open so I can pad. I need to stand on the edge and someone else needs to stand on the other edge of the floor, right? So you and another teammate, and then you just place the pad. Both of you guys will go up at the exact same time, and the timing is actually super important and competitive, so that you can land on height at the exact same time, probably even target one of the 3 people on height and insta kill them, right? Definitely make sure you do this strat as well on top of the launchpad strat, because this little optimization will give you a perfectly timed landing with one of your teammates, and then the third teammate can land with them. Obviously I want you guys to test this out in creative, you know, check if you can do all 3 people, because if you can do all 3 people same time launchpad, so that all 3 of you go up without, you know, interrupting each other, that's gonna be perfect. I do think there's a way to do that, but a more practical way is to just set up 2, because most of the time you don't have time to just like have 3 people, but set up like 2 to 3 people on a single pad to go at the same time, and then pad, and then you have the perfect landing, right? And then you crank for it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the in-game example. The in-game example is super simple. If you notice on screen right now, we have 9 layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then Charmander goes up 1 more, so that's 9. Understand that this guy's launchpad was probably not intentional, but there is a way to make it intentional, right? Which is the pings. You need to have good awareness of height, probably not be second height because that's too high, and have a good sight line of height so you can actually ping it, and also understand, you know, the layers that it's up on. So if you can do all of these things, you can actually get a perfect launchpad just like this one. This guy probably didn't do it on purpose, but I want you guys to understand that it can be done on purpose, right? So if you guys learn this strat, I really believe that you can actually do super well in trios or solos, depending on where you want to apply it. I highly recommend you try to apply it on both, but having this knowledge in your back pocket can tell you certain situations when you can take height. Let's say you get an impact in first moving, and then you want to go for height because of the fact that you got an impact. You're probably going to outmat height if you go for it, right? So then the perfect launchpad is a really good way to surprise them, and catch them off guard. I'm not kidding, from the perspective of the guy who currently holds height, because I've had it done to me before, and I've also done it to other people and some of my friends, and the perspective from the guy on height, it is actually ridiculous how instant the guy comes out of nowhere. So what I mean by that is, like, the guy who's launch padding genuinely appears out of thin air, and it's really impressive at how quick it happens and how unreactable it is, if that makes sense. And that's the key thing. You want that surprise element to be the thing that carries you on your height retake in competitive. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I feel really confident in continuing to teach the competitive knowledge to this platform. I really hope to see you guys in future videos. Bye bye.